Welcome back to Made Up of Wires. We're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. If you want to know more about the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to soten.z.dev and see progress on several of the overlays that we've been working on. Lately, been working on the library that's getting finished. There's some tricky stuff in there. You can find a link to Discord at the top, and people have been posting about some of the odd things that are found in there. I imported BO4, which is Doppelgänger. Is it not? No, I haven't. I haven't updated docs yet. If you go to GitHub, there's a link to that at the top as well. You should see BO4 there. Yep, Doppelgänger. Oh, but it is not at 100%. So Doppelgänger progress reporting looks like it's. I don't think it's at 100%. Let's go see. I'm gonna check out my BO4 branch. Yeah, there's still a lot there. So we were looking at the doors last week, and I think we'll keep working on the doors today. So we found some light effects. There's, I think we started that function. So let's open that in decomp.me and see what there is to find there. Decomp.me, if you're not familiar, is a tool for collaborative decompilation. You know you're living in the future when even your decompilation tools are collaborative. Web 2.0. I'm not sure if the Web 3.0 thing really took off. So it looks like this 774 function was where we were yesterday. Oh yeah, and it's starting to come back to me. There's some complexity here that needs to be resolved. I think all the go-tos and all that was taken care of. I don't think that I found the PSP version of this yet. That's probably worth pulling up about this time. It looks like there's some entity extensions. Thankfully that we know what some of those are. I might go through and do that first. So we have some offsets in the types. Excuse me. So it might be nice to pull in those entity extensions and do it in a way that the decompiler will pick those up and prefer those over the illegal entity. And the way to do that is just by giving it the correct fields in an earlier slot in that union. So this is Doppelgänger background light. And looking at what we have here, I'm going to go look at all the illegal extensions. And so we have a type of size 8, offset 8. So we know where that is, and we can, I know, or happen to know, that there's actually something here. We'll just give that a 32-bit spacer. We have a primitive at 8.0. We'll call that prim for now. So that gets us 8 bytes into this extension. And so now we have this unsigned 8, and we'll just call it unknown, unknown 81. And we'll add our background light up here. And so now coming back to the code, anywhere I see this illegal unknown 8, I'm going to change it to DOP light unknown 81. Actually, is it going to be 81? It'll be 85, right? 84, 84, 84. Let's get that right. And so we can put all those in place, and we should still be compiling, and we are. And let's look for the other illegals. So we have this other one. This is going to be prim. And then we have another one at offset 12. This time another, oh, this is actually a different primitive, or sorry, a different entity. It would be nice to know what that entity is before giving it a name. So this is going to be something that's not this light. It may actually be Doppelgänger himself. And I'm not sure the best way to go about that. We could look at the, it might be good to pull the entity extension, or sorry, the entity table and see what the next entity is. And then we could put this function on pause and go work on that for a little bit and then come back. So let's do that and see. Maybe there's something worth looking at. I don't think I have any of the data imported for this yet. Get my directories correct. Yeah, so the initial data is not imported. So we'll just have to look at the assembly for that, which is fine. And so we want to look for that entity extension table, and the way to, or not entity extension table, the entity table, the entity update table. We can look here, and that'll give us most of the things. These are all the things that could appear in the stage somewhere. And we see all of our functions that are in here for the most part. So the next entity, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say will be the next one, but unfortunately we don't know that because the table of entities that the game engine uses is different from this table, which is based on the entity ID. So let's see if we can find what the entity ID is for this other. No, it's not referenced either. So we don't know yet what this other entity is that is being referenced here. We just know that it's being allocated immediately after this one. So I'm going to keep looking for illegals. I feel like ice up in here. And see if there's anything. Sorry for the tasteless joke. See if there's anything else. This default return is unnecessary. Get rid of that. This can be a break. This temp is unnecessary. Most of these are not going to fix anything or improve coverage, but the more things get cleaned up, the easier it is to, I find, the easier it is to do the more complicated things later. So I'm going to replace this virus 2 with the name prim. And this structure here is just a while loop. We don't need to nest it with a condition. I'll also don't think we need this var S0. Var S0 is... Oh, it's... var S0 is our last prim, okay. Because the last one here is going to be null. And that's somewhat interesting. So our S0 is being saved into var S0. And I think now I understand the reason why this is here. It's possible that var S0 is not set in this loop because prim could be null. We know that it's not. We don't have any guarantees, but if prim index was not equal to null, well, this is an array into primitives. As long as that prim index isn't outside that, prim is not going to be null. So last prim will always be set. So I think I'm safe to get rid of that now, but I'm going to leave it just for a little longer in case there's something I'm missing. Temp1 underscore true. I'm going to rename anim frame index. This is the same as saying -1. It's just a cheap or a entropy gravity well. Nice to have you. Are you talking about the room randomizer? That is wild, isn't it? Yeah, I've seen that, and I haven't looked at any of the details for it yet, but it is, yeah, it is very cool. The Axe Armor has been available. That's part of the main game, if you haven't seen it. If you equip the axe and the axe armor, you become the axe guy. Let me see if I can find a reference to that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's part of the vanilla game. So here's Alucard as axe armor, fighting Solgar and Gaibon. A little OP. Yeah, it's kind of an Easter egg, but I'm pretty sure it's in from the original PS1 version. Okay, so you have a Mr. Entropy? I mentioned on the stream before that I missed out on the Mr. and now there's some alternatives. I should have bought one, early on, and I didn't, like a dummy. And then everything got so expensive. Can the D10 use all of the add-ons and everything that the Nano can? I have been thinking about, there's now like a third party. There's a third party board that basically is Nano, drop-in Nano compatible. And I've looked into getting that. There's not really, like, unless you go up to PS2, there's not really any reason to need more FPGA than the Nano offers. But because I missed out on it originally, I feel like, oh, something better is going to come out. I have all the analog stuff, and I'm a little disappointed that analog. I don't have the Analog Duo, though I do like the look of the system. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't go more along the Polymega route and make it CD compatible with as much as possible. I think that was a missed opportunity, especially since they have a lot of the Genesis stuff already. Adding, like, the Sega CD support isn't a ton of extra on top of the Genesis. I guess there's a few graphics things and a little bit of sound, but I feel like the people who had a Sega CD, at least in the US and probably Europe as well, dwarfs the number of people who had a PC Engine CD or TurboGrafx CD, as it was called over here. For a short period of time, I did have a TurboGrafx, and I liked the system. It was fine. There just wasn't a lot of games, and I think the issue was I had a Genesis first, Mega Drive for all you Europeans, and in general, the graphics were better on the Genesis. There just was a ton more games. So while there was some cool just odd things. It wasn't enough to interest me, and I ended up selling it, and I regretted it many years later. And I have one now, but I don't really play it. There's actually two of us when I was young who had a TurboGrafx 16. And then since I got burned on the TurboGrafx 16, I never ended up getting or felt burned, I should say. I never ended up getting a Super Nintendo. And I don't know how I feel about that. Now this far, S0_4 looks like an I. Speaking of Super Nintendo and my mind going to Super Metroid, I looked up over the weekend Soten references. Oh, this is odd. I can never be less than 0. Let me back out that change. Oh, it looks like at some point varv0_3. Oh no, it's not. I was going to say it looks like it becomes the driving I variable, but this is an odd condition because this can never be true. Oh, it could be true. What is this? Oh, that's weird. That is weird. Okay. Anyway. I was looking at my friend had a SNES. He had it shortly after it came out. So I had Genesis. I had got a Genesis like first Christmas it came out. And then kind of burned through later on, had an NES and the TurboGrafx 16. And so by the time the Super Nintendo came out, I think I'd burned through my parents' goodwill regarding consoles. And so I never had a Super Nintendo. I was pretty happy with the Genesis though, and loved the Sega CD. Ended up getting a Sega CD, and yeah, like I said, I love that, and still, it's one of my favorite consoles. Definitely not the console with the best games, but it is. Oh, so this I isn't getting incremented. So it's possible that this is not a for loop, and maybe it's something else. I should look at some other stuff here. I have duplicate prims. So I was looking at trying to find the Soten reviews. So my recollection from the time I was late to get a PlayStation. I'd rented some early on, but I was kind of cool teenager and kind of deciding whether video games is something I wanted to stay interested in. And so and PlayStation was like $300, which was a lot. And so I didn't have one for a long time, and eventually did get one though, by selling a lot of Genesis stuff, which was stupid. But my recollection is that I found, or I saw Soten at a Funko Land, for anybody. So Funko Land eventually became GameStop, or was bought by GameStop. They, all of Babbage's and software, etc., all that they all became GameStop. And my memory, which is likely faulty, but was that I can even imagine the wall that it would have been on at the store, but that Soten was on that wall, on the PlayStation wall, and it probably was a reasonable price. And I picked it up, having remembered, Super Castlevania, or Castlevania 4, sorry, and in my mind, I always thought of it as Super Castlevania. And thinking, a 2D game, why would anybody want a 2D game? And just not understanding the appeal. And, it was more than a decade. It was probably, 15 years later until I finally ended up playing Soten. Boo on me. Hey, X-Links. Good to have you. And so over the weekend, I was remembering this and wanting to know, what was the sentiment at the time regarding Soten, and did others feel that same way? So I looked at GamePro, I looked at EGM, and I looked at Game Informer, I think, which are all on archive.org now, with great scans. It was fun to see a lot of the old game ads. And all three of them, without exception, rated it as one of the highest games ever in their magazine. So they knew it was good. All of them decried 3D platforming. There was at least one, but maybe two of those who immediately made the connection to Super Metroid. So like the idea of Metroidvania, like it was there right from the beginning. They didn't say Metroidvania because obviously that wasn't a thing. But yeah, these reviewers knew. They knew more than I did when I was a teenager. So anyway, I missed the boat, but here I am now. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm gonna open this offline and see if this is appropriate. Entropy sending a tickety tock. Oh, it says tickety tock. I can show that. I enjoyed a Tamagotchi in the 90s. We actually just saw some at the store at Target with my kids, and there were some Tamagotchis. What's old is new again. All right. What did I do here? Too many eyes. I don't think I'm really making... Oh, I haven't saved this. Well, that is unfortunate. I closed all these thinking that I had saved them. This must be what I had though, because this is not what the generated comment would look like. So I think I'm gonna go and grab, there's a few more things that I can do to clean this up. But I do want to grab the PSP version and start mucking with that. I will go up, I guess, and see how many temp variables I can get rid of. Oh, these are really weird. Again, this is a minus equals 1. Unless it's signed. Sorry, unsigned. Looks like this is a plus equals. Big gross function. Let's see how many of these exist still. Some of these it's not obvious whether these are going to be necessary or if they're inlined and then optimized out. I will do that though. I will replace this with position X and position Y. That actually got me a little further away. See what other temps we have. If there's any obvious ones. So this temp has 5. Again, is probably just position X. Whether it's signed or not, I think is somewhat of an issue, but one that I don't really want to deal with at the moment. I'm going to save this and go find the PSP version. So we're looking for a function. I'll go back here a second. I think this color lookup table, for example, this 15F, is a pretty unique value. I always want to find unique values that are immediates or constant values. The sound effects are good too, that are going to show up in the PSP version. I find that to be the easiest way. And I don't have this, so I'm going to use make config. I mentioned this the other day as well. I did try so we have a couple that have that 1.5F. I'm going to use the 7cc as well. I did try building this for PSP and I couldn't get it to build. And I'm not sure why, and I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it. Oops. It would be nice to import the PSP versions at the same time, but it didn't seem feasible. So I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to add some of the context stuff like the entity extension and see if that version helps out or not. If we can get a match on the PSP, it'll be there then waiting. So I'm going to grab, like I said, the background light entity extension, add that. There is a lot of primitive work here, so I do need to be careful and make sure that the primitive structure is the PSP version. In the little slit of a window that I have here. And we know that this is an entity update function, so we can give it the appropriate signature. And I am going to be using PSP variables and offsets. So I'm going to grab those as well. I'll throw those into the context. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'll create the scratch and I'll add them to the context now. Otherwise, the context will get saved. So there's a few functions that I need to identify and get signatures for those. I am going to look through this, though, briefly and see if there's anything obvious. I don't see anything super obvious. So down just before the time attack controller is a function. Let's grab that signature. Let's create entity from entity. We should have that in the context already. So I can give you that. Right above case 3. Since I'm replacing those symbols anyway, I'm just going to grab the PlayStation version, which should compile. But a very poor match. So let's see why. So these names are different, which is fine. The fall through here is fine. There's ordering issue. So I'm just going through these and looking kind of scanning this side, looking at mine, and seeing if there's obvious difference. The nice thing about this is the PSP will have the ordering correct for the most part. So the PlayStation version doesn't give us that, and sometimes it can be difficult to identify the correct ordering. So no change with those fixes, but it's better. So we're grabbing an unknown offset here, which is odd for the PSP version. Usually it's very explicit that this is something else, but it's almost as if this is not a separate variable, and maybe that's what it is. We're grabbing this other index, but then computing the offset to the field right away. So even though it's not an optimizing compiler, it can do that all at once, calculating the -8C offset from self plus the frame index forward, giving us 3C. Negative BC offset, sorry. And then some funniness with how the frame offset's being calculated. My guess is, and I have this here, my guess is that this is actually a like a mod, possibly a mod, like a mod 16. So I'm going to grab all this, bring it back over, and I can work through the mod on the PlayStation side because it's more closely matching. Oh, and we want to call this animation frame index. That would help. Some of this is probably going to be wrong, or a little more difficult to figure out. One thing that might be possible is to find the animation frames for this, which would tell us what the mod should be. So we're shifting over by 16. And I don't think that we'd have that many frames. So let's try a few things and we'll see if they work out. Let's see where this var v0 is being used. var a2. var a2 is being used for var a0. And var a0 is being used for the u coordinate. So we're taking the frame index and shifting the texture coordinate slightly based on that. And so the texture coordinate is probably a gradient. And the V, or the X coordinate for those textures is. Hey, Cristiano, good to have you back. Yeah, sorry I missed your comment earlier. The math functions can be unique too, and sometimes I'll do that. I'll look at like counts of functions. One issue and difficulty with counts of functions is that sometimes they'll be optimized in different ways. And so what could be what looks like several instances where you'd expect a JAL to destroy entity, for example. This happens frequently with destroy entity, is that gets optimized all into one block, and the compiler jumps back to that destroy entity several times in different places, even though it doesn't look like that in the code. And so then when MetroWorks compiles it for the PSP, it's going to not optimize that really. And so there can be different counts. And I've failed several times to find things based on that heuristic. It doesn't always fail, but sometimes it does. All right, so let's see what's going on here. So animation frame index. Let's look at the PSP again. So we're dividing by 2 plus the shift by 15, and then a shift by 1F. So 1F is 128, 127. Let's try that. Most of the time this is being line numbers, so is it line numbers? Completion is succeeding. Oh, this happens. I don't know what has gone on recently, but I don't have the right preset, and so this should work a little better. There we go. And yes, on line 83, that is incorrect. It should be animation frame index. That is better. One issue with kind of randomly going through different possibilities is the code for a mod. Oh, here we have a and with the 1F. The code for mod, in my experience, is effectively a hash function. And so every value is going to produce something that appears wildly different. And there's no, if you haven't looked at tables of how to optimize these in the past, there's no obvious way to find them. I'll come back to this when I know more. I do think, though, that there is something else going on here, and it's not the shift and division that M2C is finding. That is something that M2C, and maybe that's something worth looking at off stream, is how does can we add heuristics in M2C for finding mods and divisions? Because a lot of and it depends on the settings for GCC, but a lot of times these will generate a lot of instructions that a lot of code for the instructions that are there, when really it's a fairly simple line in C. So it looks like there is some multiplication going on here. Instead of, and so this was a GCC optimization. Because this is always a subtraction, really this is I times 2, but GCC has optimized that out to making var A0 something else. And these I have to actually fix up a little bit. The V0 isn't being set. So let's look at this. So this has to do with the animation frame index. Don't know what it is quite yet. And then we're doing this plus 40, which looks like this var A0. But it's actually happening in line, and GCC has pulled that out. So I'm going to take these, and I have to keep track of the variables, which may or may not be a difficult problem. We'll see. So here, ours is var A2, and var S2 is the I variable, and the mask is not necessary. The mask will happen implicitly. And then the V0, var S2 is our I. And again, the mask is not necessary. So now this var A0 goes away. And var A1 also goes away. That looks nicer. These others are the same. It looks like there is a prim missing. Setting prim. Oh no, it's here. Sorry, but it's happening out of order. Let's see if PlayStation likes that. Yeah, the PlayStation likes it a little bit. Good. I might put this one on pause for a second and see if there's something a little more brain candy. That I could do. So here, our var S1 is based on I, and then it's not. So I like calling these angle, only because that's what you pass to sine and cosine functions. Yeah, X-links. This function is for the light effect when you enter the doppelganger room. And we can go there and look at it. Probably a good thing to review when working on these. Let's see if I don't have DexStation open at the moment. Looks like there's been an update. Oh, do I want to update now? Remind me later. And I have to find these windows. Oh. It looks like my save states might not have updated. Yeah, drat. Oh, weird. The save state that I have is a newer version than this version of DuckStation. Maybe I opened the wrong version of DuckStation. Let me see. Yeah, that's what it looks like. I just had the wrong version. There's so many things to do. The other thing that I think would be really nice to do is integrate SPIM into DuckStation. SPIM's a MIPS disassembler. A disassembler takes assembly code, it takes machine code and turns it into assembly. And it provides much nicer assembly than DuckStation does. Let me find bugger window. Right. So this function is at offset 801B. There's a lot going on at the beginning. I'm going to add a breakpoint there, and so you're going to see when it starts. So we're right outside Doppelgänger's room. Oh, this one triggered already? I don't think this one triggered yet, but it is. So I'm going to undo this breakpoint. So you come in and the blocks beneath or fall behind you. I actually thought this function was triggered the lights here. What I believe this function is basically is the light effect that happens now. And so part of it is the rotation of these of those beams. It is still triggering, so it may be this rotating color behind as well. Oh wait, oh, I just paused that. Yeah. So yeah, it may be this color rotating effect in the back. Not sure. It's one of those two things. All right, let's shut all that down. It's a longer function though. Are we getting any closer on the PlayStation side? Yeah, we are. Slow going on this one, that's okay. I'm going to go through and just clean up. A lot of this is really just going to be cleaning up M2C's noise. Hey, Roaming. Good to have you back. Haven't seen you in a while. It's going okay. So this Tempest one basically is the a +1 of I. So we can call that one angle as well. And get rid of that. Ooh, Animal Crossing. Which version? It is neat to see some of the similarities. So this temp S5 pulled out in both, temp S4 pulled out in both. I'm going to rename those position X and position Y. We already have those variables. I can imagine. So there's enough math in a 2D game like Castlevania. I can't even imagine when you're having to deal with 3D space, everything that needs to go into that. One of the things that I want to do for fun, there's a couple mods that I'm interested in making. One of them is putting the Made Up of Wires logo in the game, rotating like I have it at the beginning of the game. And some places these might be unsigned, and some places they might be signed. I think just quads, it ends up being like 98 quads to get the Made Up of Wires logo. And the rotation I don't think will be terrible once I lay out all the coordinates, but it's just a lot of stuff. So here, this temp S5 and temp S6, I don't know why they're pulled into separate variables. The only reason I can imagine doing that on the PlayStation side is that maybe some of these are like maybe some are signed and some are unsigned. That maybe some of them, yeah, I guess they're all signed, but some need an entity extension or a sign extension to 32 bits and others don't. And so they're just saving those off to avoid having to do that sign extension. But it's not, a second variable isn't necessary for those. GameCube is PowerPC, is that correct? So here we have this temp A0, which is interesting because it isn't set. It's a different value over here. A0 typically is argument 0, which would be the first field of, no, it'd actually just be the pointer value of self. But on the PSP side, it's a global. So let's go back and look at, let's take all these and bring it back to the PlayStation. We got to 88%. Oh, not quite 88, almost. I want to look at the decomp over here. And it could be that, oh, temp 0 is just this D. I screwed up when I was simplifying this. And temp v4 is this value. This looks like a min, and this is possibly a max. If you're not seeing an ad right now, that means you are a subscriber, and I really appreciate that you're supporting the channel. And I hope that you're enjoying what's happening here. If there's anything you'd like to see as a supporter, feel free to chat and let me know. I'd be happy to consider any suggestions. We are making our way through this function, which is one of the, I think, one of the light effects for Doppelgänger. Though I feel like I'm mistaken as to which one it is. When I originally pulled this, I thought it was the light beams coming out, but the breakpoints don't seem to match up with that anymore. And so I may be mistaken. It looks like there may be some arrays here, these 1, 3, 0. Looks like arrays that were not, oh no, these are fine. Never mind. And a bunch of these mostly look like clamping functions, I'm assuming. Come down here. A lot of this logic is just kind of gross. So this does have a properly driven I variable. When I was looking at this earlier, I was based on this S1_2, and so I'm going to get rid of this. There's something more here that I'm missing, but I do think that I is the just a normally incrementing I is the way to go. And let's see if there's anything else I want to do here. I'm in the mood for something a little easier. Something that I don't have to think about as much. I'm going to go through and see if I can get rid of any of these bar A0 or A1. See how many of these I can get rid of beforehand. I'll just do this. So I need temp v1 and bar v0. those. I've given it a name. Usually it's being used. Not always. Hey, Antoine. Good to have you back. Looks like we need most of these. Slightly better. All right, so let's save both of these and let's find something. Let's find something smaller. Save. And maybe there's something we can get done pretty quickly. I don't mind doing the long ones, but usually I like sitting quietly, not necessarily narrating the whole thing. All right, let's try 5.5 DC. Let's see if anybody has worked on that yet. I do need to check my primitive because it may have dummy. Yep, it's dummy in it. In the US this past weekend, it was a long weekend, which was nice. I took the family ice skating. And I need to pay more attention. My preset isn't right for Castlevania, so I frequently get the wrong thing. This one turned out to be very easy, or I shouldn't say easy yet because we don't know. But M2C did a great job on the initial decompilation. This is another function that's in that same. So what it appears like to me in the doppelganger fight is that there's a section of functions that are all related to the different doors in the room. There's the blocks that fall down after you enter the room. There's the spinning discs in the middle. There's a light that comes through them. So this is another function in that same group of functions. So we know based on function args, anything to initialize entity is going to be an einit. That actually might be a good tool for make config. Going through and pre-populating types for things. So we know if something is setting the A0 register immediately before a jump and link to initialize entity, that this type is going to be the einit type. There's a bunch of like little quality of life things that we could probably do like that to make this easier. The other one that I wanted to do, and I think this would be possible now that I've done a bunch of the work on dupes and making that so much faster. What I think we can do is basically say, here's a hash of masked instructions for the beginning and a hash of a masked instruction for the end, or here's the collection of hashed functions. And that's like the collectible functions. Those are Mudman, those are chair, etc. And then basically create all the segments automatically when importing new things. On the one hand, that would be nice. On the other hand, we only have a finite number of things to import, so maybe it's not necessary. The first arg to animate entity is frames. So these are both going to be arrays. And we can call var A0 frames. So let's go to, can go away. I think that we could change this to greater than equals, and probably make this an and. That got us a little further away though. Greater than 100. Maybe an or with this, I don't know. Let's see what I screwed up here. Maybe a separate. Yeah, I guess it was a separate statement. These look like they are backwards, possibly. Or the and is being done separately and being stored in a separate variable. So I just kind of instinctively added this else. It may be that the else doesn't actually exist. But that and is still looks like it should be happening earlier. Not sure what's going on there. These are usually setting the field directly as opposed to setting a variable, and that made things very close. And actually, that may be what's happening here as well. That animate entity is not. These aren't setting variables, but they are just calling animate entity with different args. So let's try doing that. Oops. No. Try it. There we go. Yep, that looks much better. So I am going to pull the PSP version of this as well. Otherwise, this looks done. And sort of build in the background here. And we can verify that this is going to match. So again, looking for unique values. The 64 and 62 hex, those are pretty unique. They're used multiple times. I'm gonna. Most of these should go away. Oh, there's a couple other things here. This velocity X. This is going to be likely set up here as well. The ordering here may be wrong, but I'm going to look for those other ones. Something's failing in my build. Oh, the reason is when you import a new overlay for a different version, currently it writes a C file to the wrong directory. So you try to build that C file and it doesn't work. So let's see, I'm going to get rid of boss vo4 80.c, and that should work. All right, so let's check this one first, and then we'll go grab the PSP version. So this was 5.5 DC. Get rid of the include ASM. And that worked great. I think most of these should be gone now. V0 is not. So that looks like, we'll call that offset X. And then go back and look for this. So a couple functions. These both have 62 twice, but this is part of a longer value. This is an offset for some struct, so the only one remaining is this one here. And before I go, I'm going to choose Symphony of the Night. Make sure that I have the right one. Again, this is an entity update function, so our return type is void. Our argument is an entity self. And so the PSP version will just tell us some little things like ordering and often masking types, things like that. So this order is wrong. Oh, we have these immediate values where the field isn't, or the function isn't mapped to the right symbol, which we can ignore. Down on line 44. And this should be a break. That's a nice check. But other than that, everything else was correct. So that was nice. This ended up being just the kind of function that I wanted to end the stream on. Something nice and simple and like the beach read of of decompilation. So we have a few more functions in here related to these doors. I'm going to go through these probably later today and see if there's anything that I can pull out. I might go through data. I don't know if that's interesting to people looking at some of the data. All of the overlays, stage type overlays. It's actually kind of an interesting symbol that was created. All of the stage overlays have a header that has one of two structs at the beginning and how that struct is. It's one of two types. The game engine knows for each stage what that is going to be, what type it's going to be. It's somewhat interesting to look at. And then a bunch of these other things are setting up color lookup tables and other texture data. These are bizarre. This is a format, and we have updated Splat recently, so maybe this is something new that Splat is doing that I'm just not used to yet. The entity updates, these are worth looking at. So these tell you exactly what entity ID each of these functions will be associated with, starting with 0, going all the way down. I did import that. No, I didn't import it. I do have a enum that I have been filling in. Any other interesting data here? Some of these data, some of these arrays have symbols. Others don't. Oh, sorry. I can show you what I'm looking at. It's these symbols that are new and bizarre, something that I haven't seen before. There are other ones that are somewhat interesting like this. These are terminal values for lists, and these lists have really odd sizes. So we treat it as a list of 32-bit values, but often the entries in the 32-bit value may be larger or smaller, and it's just a bizarre layout. I don't know what. Sometimes you don't know what they're thinking when they do these things. But yeah, we can look at some of that tomorrow and see what that is. That's all the time I'm going to spend today decompiling. So if you are interested in the project, go to soten.z.dev and you can learn more. We've been decompiling Castlevania Symphony tonight, looking at the some of the doors in the Doppelgänger room, of which there are many. Go to soten.z.dev and learn about more. And I'll be back tomorrow doing more. If there's something you want to see, post in chat, like, subscribe, do all the things. And I'll see you then. That's all I have. Adios.